Now, Nuai Thai as a system is a yoga system. The origins are, it began originally in Tibet. We know who the Tibetan teachers were. About, well, one thing we don't know, we know that it moved from Tibet about 2,500 years ago, and the Tibetan teacher's name was Jivaka. And there are Tibetan records that illustrate this, and there are Thai records that show when he arrived in Thailand. And so we know that the school, which is 2,500 years old in Thailand, existed in Tibet for 2,000 years before that. And so we have a very long history of this information, of this teaching, trying to make its way into the world of men and women. So that's our history. We know where it comes from and how it comes to me. I'm in the 37th generation of teachers in the Thai line. I'm the first generation of Western teachers. Okay, so just like we talk about Jivaka, Paku Samai, my teacher, is 36th generation Grandmaster. We know who all 35 of the others are. We know who they all are. Back to Jivaka, who founded the school. And then we know where he came from. We know who his parents were in Tibet, and we know where his family came from. Back. So it's a yoga tradition. Now what that means is we do the postures and facilitations, the attitudes of the body, that we believe that the energy of the body is affected by how you sit, stand, lay, walk, and hold yourself. Posture. The awareness is the vipassana attitude, the insight space, being able to be clear and uncluttered, to be a hollow tube, to transmute the energies of heaven and earth in the most unrestricted, uncluttered, and cleanest way possible. This system is part of a bigger system, which has to do with the psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being of a person. Because in healing, you cannot actually say that anything is healed, to use that word, until everything is healed. I'm going to teach you a moving meditation called a kata, which is a prearranged sequence of movements which you use as your vehicle for your meditation with another person. I am an authorized teacher in a recognized line of teachers that's thousands of years old. I'm in the 37th generation. I was given lineage to communicate this teaching from a personal teacher who laid hands on me and authorized me to do the same. And so actually what I believe is that when I'm communicating this teaching, on some level I become the embodiment of the medicine Buddha. And that on some level that communication comes through in spite of Anthony. And that every person has a right to tap into that lineage and tap into that line. And when you make that connection, it's your connection, not mine. That's one of the miracles about lineage. You say, oh, you know, I don't, people get confused with the guru thing with lineage. Okay? Lineage is older than gurus. Lineage is the line of transmission because the love line must manifest through humans, and does. And so when you come into proximity to a line of teaching that's genuine, you get a transmission of energy that is far bigger than what the class can convey or what the lesson can convey. Far bigger. Why? Because you get access to the line. And once you have access to that line, it is now your connection. And you can access it independent of the teacher. That's one of the secret teachings about lineage. That's why it's like the Dalai Lama is a lineage holder of the Nyingma school and the yellow hats. Okay? Why you want to get next to him is that if you can get next to him and make a personal connection with him, you immediately are given access to his lineage. And it doesn't go through him. It goes through you. So in our mantras, like Om Namo Shiva Go, really what we're saying is, in the name of, like the Father Dr. Shiva Go, who was famous because every person that he laid hands on recovered. Every person. Hey, Jesus had a good reputation. Guess what? We now know lots of people who had very similar reputations as Jesus. Just maybe they weren't so popularized in the. And actually, here's an interesting phenomenon. I personally found out that when we work in this way, that every person I touch recovers to some degree or another. Every single time. And that sometimes when I do a session with someone, they have a miraculous recovery, I attribute that as much to their being present, willing, and available to the healing as to my being a vessel or conduit for the healing. But what I found out is that it's no longer a matter of if things are going to get better, if things are going to move toward resolution or recovery. It's more a matter of how much. So what we believe is that everything is significant in this equation. From who am I in this equation? I'm a product of my lineage and my personal life. I acknowledge my teachers. Who are you in this equation? Do you really want to receive? Do you really want to recover? Because if you don't, we're wasting our time. Every thought, every emotion, every physical attitude, every state, every inflection, every characteristic about the healing session is significant. Every way that I touch you or I'm touched by you is significant. There's no such thing as an insignificant touching. So we have this traditional school, uninterrupted lineage. And what that means is the line of transmission of insight, intelligence, understanding, educational technology, however you want to frame it, that this science represents, has come to us in a very clear and a very clean and a very undiluted manner. I didn't learn about this from somebody who heard about it from somebody who dreamed about it. That's not the way it works. We have a personal, solid, concrete connection to the school, and you can go see my teachers tomorrow if you want to do it. Everything that I present in the class, it's traditional, and it's part of my education, and I'm giving it to you the best way that I can, but I want you to understand everything that I teach in this class, or everything that will be taught in this class, is a theory. It's presented to you as a theory. Okay? Because I've proven it, and I've verified it, and I've validated it in my own experience, and in the experience of my own clients. I've probably done more than 10,000 sessions hands-on. Then I'll give you as much resource information as I can, a way that you can pursue it on your own. And then you must go out, and you must do your own research to validate the information yourself. So one of the things we get from our Thai schools as a tradition is that you must lay hands on lots of people to prove healing work, period. That's the fundamental equation. It doesn't matter what you understand theoretically if you don't actually touch people. The way that I categorize them in my mind is the southern style is a yin style, and the northern style is a yang style. And so you find in the yogically based Tibetan-based, close to Tibetan origin of the southern style, everything is done very slowly and very methodically. That comportment and carriage and the way that you move is very important. Even sometimes the way that you turn your hand. If I want to move over this way, just the fact that I roll like a leaf before I place my hand, that actually has a name. Put the tulam or kun kratafan or something like that, which means like the leaf blown on the pond. Okay, so in the southern school, you would even have names for techniques which are how I move my hand from the knee to the foot, because that tells the way I carry the energy to the next point, okay? And the northern style, forget it. You just go, okay? Why? Because the emphasis is on points, okay? And the emphasis is more on affecting points to manipulate the chi. Less emphasis on who am I here. That's more Chinese. The northern style, it's more important, all that's important is what you do. In other words, you can virtually be anybody. As long as you push the headache point, that headache's going to get better. So there's a lot of emphasis placed on where's the headache point. And everybody wants to know, well, where's the stomach point? And is there a diet point? In the South, you don't hear virtually any of it. Now, do they not know points in the South? Oh, yes, they do. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, all the traditional historical representations about energy and point are found in the Southern School. It's where the Northern people got them. Okay? The difference is the emphasis. In the Southern School, the emphasis, again, is more on who you are in the healing equation as opposed to what are you doing. In other words, if I'm who I'm supposed to be, right here, right now, I will do what's appropriate for me to do. I will do the right thing, whatever that is. And if I am who I'm supposed to be, absolutely, in this moment, and we're coming together as a therapeutic or a healing encounter, then guess what? Nothing else will occur except a movement toward integration, a movement toward holism, a movement toward what we might call health or healing. Now, in northern Thailand, Waiku is actually a mantra. It's a prayer that you speak with your mouth. Om Namo Shivago Silasa Aham Kaluniko Sapasatanang Osata Tipamantan Surya Jantango Malapato. That's it. That's it. It goes on and on. Okay? But Om Namo Shivago Om, like in yoga, Om Namo, in the name of Shivago. Shivago is the teacher, the founder of our school. So we're paying respect in terms of we actually say it. We pay respect to the teachers and the founders and the good people and all the people, even if they weren't good or not, but who thought enough about good things to help preserve them, who brought them to us, and all the powers and spiritualities and beings and principalities that supported them and support me to be in this connection. And we pay respect to all of them, and we pay homage to all of them, and we ask for all of them to be present and to abide with us now, and we ask for all of them, including my own contribution, to be available to bring all the energy that's possible to come for healing and happiness to the body of my client. And they actually say this as a prayer. Okay, and that's northern style. Now in the south, and this is actually the more traditional way, it's actually a physical exercise. It's a dance, which looks like Tai Chi. So the Wai Kru is actually a dance. We have 4 kinds of meditation that are technologies for creating various kinds of awareness that are common to discipline. Number 1 is called shamatha, or samatha. This is called be still, be quiet, and listen. Be still, be quiet, and listen. Passive, introspective, focused meditation. Be still, be quiet, and listen. Because what do you abide? You calmly abide. Now, it can look like many things. It can look like, your classic monk sitting with his legs crossed and, his hands folded like so, and it can look like that. It can look like someone sitting in sesa or like this. Anything that would be very passive physically. Why? Because we want to bring the attention away from the physical body into the inside, into the internal space, so that we can gain some insight. And the tool that we use once we're in this calm place is we focus on an object. So we also say shamatha meditation is object-focused meditation. Vipassana means insight. Insight, that's really all it means. Sometimes it's called the walking meditation. And so Vipassana is an active introspective meditation as opposed to a passive introspective meditation. Because what we're doing now is engaging a dynamic quality of life to get some experiential based insight, working insight. And another way that it's sometimes described, my meditation teacher was a guy, I like to always to mention my teachers in passing. Ajahn Chah was my meditation teacher. And so Ajahn Chah said that insight meditation, or meditations that you do in life, are practical meditation. Because when I get all peaceful and passive and introspective, I can also become quite fanciful, right? I can engage in fantasy more readily. I get into privacy and I'm in a quiet space, and I can have a lot of distraction, a lot of imagination, if you will. But when I'm engaged in trying to meditate in life, as in action, the action demands a certain kind of attention. Just demands it, just because I'm engaged in some action. And we say that is a practical way of thinking. The thinking that is a must, or is a direct consequence of your action, is practical thinking. Vipassana is object-less meditation. Shamatha is object-centered meditation. So we put an image, it could be a Buddha. That's very popular in Thailand. And if I think I get a lot of insight when I'm sitting all quiet in my closet, and if I think I get a lot of insight when I'm taking a nice quiet walk. And I think I get a lot of insight when I'm doing my mantras, my prayers, my more extroverted meditations. It's nothing compared to the insight I get as soon as I open myself up to be available to have any kind of meaningful communication with another person. Because that's the way we're made. We are made in God's likeness, each and every one of us. And so if you want to find God, you don't have to go far. You just grab your friend and give him a shake. That's the way it works. And so in the meditation, the highest meditation was healing. And I've just given you maybe just a little bit of a hierarchy on how that is so. Why would laying hands on another person, being engaged or working with them at all, be considered a pinnacle of evolution in meditation? Not just something to do. This is the highest art. This is why in the historical text the Buddha was first called a doctor before he was called a teacher. And the Dhamma is called medicine before it's called education. The next meditation is called Wai Kru. Wai Kru. This is a Y. So when the Thais pay respect, they put their hands together like this and they bow their head and touch their hands to their sixth chakra, to Ajna chakra, like so. Okay? And it's called a Y, W-A-I. Kru, I'm a teacher. Kru is a teacher. Why Kru means why, or pay respect to the teacher. But there's not a teacher, there are three teachers. I don't know how much you guys know about Buddhas, but I want to say this. You are a Buddha. Every person here is a Buddha, by definition, in the strictest interpretation of the word. And there are over 10,000 historical Buddhas as figures with names. Okay? And I've heard and participated in mantras where at least there's a common one in one variation of the Heart Sutra where 100 are named in the course of the sutra. But we commonly refer to 10,000 Buddhas. So there is no Buddha. So it's like when you think about Buddhas, there's no Buddha. There's Buddhas. And we're all Buddhas. So there are billions of Buddhas. And a Buddha is an image, which is if you could think of a person, a real life flesh and blood person, and if you could embody in any person the qualities that you personally thought of as being exemplary as far as what is possible for a human person, a real life flesh and blood person, to possibly obtain in their life and through their life and as a consequence of their life. And however you could do that, if you could picture someone who embodied those qualities, and you know what, that person might look like your grandmother, and that person might look like a teacher that you used to have, and that person might look like a friend, past or present. And if you could embody those qualities in that person, and then you wanted to be reminded of that person's contribution and their experience, you might make an image, and that would be a Buddha image. And so the technology is we're in countries like in our school, in Nuat Thai, my school was founded 2,500 years ago. Well, this is before Kodak. And they want to remember this person. They want to be able to give credit to this person. See, we practice a principle called give credit where credit is due. It's a process of spiritual copyright. As soon as I acknowledge my teacher, my lineage, I practice that spiritual copyright, I'm now free to be me. I'm now free to acknowledge whatever contribution I may have to make in the equation. So, that old teacher, we want to remember him. We don't have Kodaks, we don't have snapshots, we don't have video cameras. So, but what we have is our hands and our eyes and our memory, and so we make a statue that reminds us of our loving teacher. So the third meditation is a practice of paying respect to three teachers. Now, who are those three teachers? Well, the actual translation is not teacher, it's Buddha. The first teacher is called the Great Buddha, Avalokiteshvara Buddha, or the Great Buddha, or Great Teacher. This is whatever is your conception of of God or absolute cosmic consciousness, however you frame it. The second Buddha is also important, maybe more. Second Buddha is Bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas are flesh and blood people in your life or through their flesh and blood life who have brought you the good information, the good ideas, the good technology, the good teachings that enable you to be the very best person that you personally believe that you can be. It's important to know this because you must acknowledge where your light comes from. Third Buddha is the inner teacher. Whatever you call the teacher, the guide within your own heart. So, for instance, sometimes I call third Buddha conscience. If you have a real conscience, which I believe you do, but if you do, if you ever hear a voice inside of you that actually knows what you're supposed to be doing in every situation, that's the third Buddha. And that's what my teachers and their teachers were referring to. Number 4 is Nuat Thai. Different. See, we're active and we're extroverted. See, the first 2 are totally introverted. The third meditation, well, we've got the extroversion angle in that we're also looking for Great Spirit or first maker, first creator, God, Jehovah, whatever. But that's outside, right? And bodhisattvas, flesh and blood, living people outside of us as examples for us. So that's an extroverted angle. But when we come into Nuat Thai, what we're trying to do is to bring the same qualities of insight and intuition and connectedness and acknowledgement that we had in all the first 3, but to a flesh and blood person. So we do our walking meditation. Instead of walking back and forth in the room, I'm walking back and forth on your body. And the primary traditional outcomes that we're concerned with have nothing to do with circulation, have nothing to do with chi, have nothing to do with points, have nothing to do, per se, with engendering a sense of well-being. Not per se. There are 4 traditional outcomes for traditional Thai medicine. Number 1 is love. That's the outcome. In other words, the primary thing I'm trying to communicate is love. We actually believe that love is an intelligent, constructive, active, engaging force in the universe. It is not an airy-fairy, ephemeral concept. When love, as this active force of nature, this pure energy, manifests, it must manifest in a practical way. And we call that practical expression of love compassion. And so a compassionate act is an expression of love. So in other words, love is a concept until it manifests. When it manifests, it becomes compassion or compassionate acting or compassionate thinking. Compassion being the practical manifestation of love as an energy, as a concept. The third outcome is called joy. Joy. So whenever compassion manifests, there's a side effect. The side effect of compassionate manifestation is joy, the existence of joy. And we actually do this as a little test. Was there joy? Yes, then there was compassion. Was there joy? No joy. No compassion. Or less compassion. And the fourth outcome that we're looking for is called equanimity. Equanimity is a very interesting word. The easiest thing that I can say about it is balanced mind, harmony, homeodynamic stasis, equilibrium, equanimity. Has to do with balanced mind. And so those are the 4 primary outcomes that are traditional for traditional Thai medicine. So a traditional Thai doctor would go to the healthy person and the sick person equally. You see? Just because you appear healthy and happy does not mean you're healthy from the Thai doctor's point of view if there's no joy, if there's no balanced mind. You're just as sick as someone with cancer. And if someone has cancer and they have joy and a balanced mind, and there's compassion and love in their life, that is not a sick person. That's a healthy person who's dying. There's a difference. love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Those are the primary outcomes. In fact, traditionally speaking, if that's all you communicate to the person, then you have successfully performed the treatment. Because those four things are considered the antidotes for everything that ails you. Now, we're Western people, and we're very literate, and we like to get things in bites. We like to get them really quick. Most of you would, to get access to the teaching that we're doing here, would not submit yourself to a 4-year full-time dormitory residential training program that every average day started with a meditation at 4:30 in the morning. And every hour of the day was accounted for until 7 o'clock every night, 6 days a week, with 1 day off sort of for your own for 4 years to get the basic class. Most of you would not do that. Some of you might do that. Okay, I did that. And what I do is take the information and distill it, congeal it, and translate it and make it into bites that are a little bit easy to take on. So we talk about things in kind of a big scope, and then we bring them down really fine. I'll give you an example of that. Talked about the 4 outcomes: love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. The 4 primary outcomes in a Nuat-Thai encounter. Ordinarily, what we would like to do is do a series of meditations and considerations about what is the nature of love. And we might take several months to do that. And we could do that. We could just do a class on what is the nature of love as a concept, as an energy, as a practical expression. And we could literally take a year or 2 just to cover the love part. Okay? So we don't have it. So what I do is I tell you that these things exist, and then I'll give you as much resource information as I can, a way that you can pursue it on your own. And then you must go out and you must do your own research to validate the information yourself. If you do not, it is valueless to you. Okay? It's just me. It doesn't matter what I believe. Really doesn't. It doesn't matter what training I've had. It doesn't matter if I booted myself to Asia. It does not matter to you. If you can't personally validate the kind of concepts that we discuss, they are meaningless to you. But this is Ayurvedic medical theory. We talk about the construction of atoms, and that atoms, have neutrons and electrons. Well, in the Ayurvedic theory, part of those atom structure has an intelligence or mind or a mental part, and part has a physical part. And the mental part controls the physical part. Energy precedes physiology, not the other way around. So how much do I have to actually touch you to accomplish healing? I don't have to touch you at all. I don't have to be with you. That basically what you are is an antenna. And the Chinese say it really simply in that there's a symbol right here. Look at this symbol right here, everybody. Yin yang. So this is a 2-dimensional representation of a 3-dimensional concept, right? They're in flux. We have these 2 polar elements. Well, that's accurate and it's not accurate. Traditionally, this is not an illustration of 2. Everybody always says that. And I think that goes back to, that's also that Western perspective, black and white. Everything's black and white, right? No, because actually it's 3 elements. And this is a perfect illustration of the principle or law of 3. What would they be? Active, passive, and the reconciliation, or the face or interface or communication or transition between the 2 as a 3rd and distinctive element. And if you were to look at the 2-dimensional symbology of the yin-yang, where do you see the 3rd element? It is the line between the 2. Or the dots that are found within. In other words, those are the indication of the 3rd element. And so the idea is that we have internal, we have external, but what's between internal and external? We have hard and soft, but what's between hard and soft? We have the spiritual, and we talk about the spiritual part, the philosophy of paying respect to 3 Buddhas, the lineage, talk about the outcomes that are kind of energetic, philosophical outcomes, love, joy, compassion, and equanimity. The counterpart is the physical, okay, laying hands on the other person. The 3rd element is what happens when I'm in a particular state of mind and use my mind and my mental focus and my mental energy in a constructive and directive way as I'm touching the person. And that's where we see the law of 3 in effect in the treatment. In the yoga, we see that your body is reconciliation between heaven and earth. And this is also the first Taoist trigram in the I Ching, heaven, man, earth, or heaven, woman, earth. Okay? So heaven being the yang energies and earth being the yin energies, and man, woman, human beings, is the reconciliation between them. And so on the yin-yang chart, and what I want to show you about the symbol is that you as an organism, as an organic part of life, are the line between the two. That's who you are. Okay? You're the dots. You're becoming heaven and becoming earth. You are. Becoming. We're becoming. Okay? That's very, very important, because the way that my teachers would explain it is, that's our function, is that I communicate the energy of earth to a higher vibration, and I communicate the energy of the heavens to a lower vibration. That's what I do. And another way of saying it is that I'm how the earth sees the stars, and I'm how the stars feel wet grass on the feet. Okay, that's my function. So I'm an antenna, right? I'm that golden thread between heaven and earth. Well, my body is a perfectly adapted conduit for transmuting these lower energies to higher vibrations and higher energies to lower vibrations. Every way that I move my body changes the quality of the signal. And we call the understanding of the fundamental attitudes of the body as they relate to how they change the signal, yoga. And each posture changes the energy that's flowing between heaven and earth in a subtly different way. And there is a consequence in my own body. And so that's what we do also in the Nuat Thai. We utilize that technology to work the body through 5 different attitudes, which are designed literally to bring certain qualities of energy available to the person that's receiving. And so what I'm doing as a therapist is I'm doing the same thing that we do at home when you walk over to the television and tweak the antenna a little bit. You can look that up. You can go to any library and just get a good generic reference on the origins of Buddhist philosophy and get a good dissertation on the psychology of Buddhism, and it will explain that Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Gautama Siddhartha person, was a physician, and that the teachings, which are called Buddhist philosophy, are the construction of his medicine, which is to cure suffering, which, by the way, is the Buddhist name for this world. We call it Earth. In the Buddhist philosophy, we call this world samsara, or the ordinary world of pain and suffering. That's all this world is about. Everything is about pain. And so the philosophy, or the Dhamma, is about how do we handle the equation of pain, the question of pain, the philosophy of pain, and the resolution of pain. Where does pain come from? What does pain do while it's here? Can pain go away? And where does it go away? And what causes it to be handled? How do you answer those questions? That's why this world is called samsara, ordinary world of suffering. Because guess what? No matter how happy you are, you're going to suffer somewhere in this life. And if nothing else, you're going to suffer when you leave this life, if nothing else. And even if so, you're still going to go, if nothing else, from too much of this life. Too much life is just as terminal as too little, or what? There's no distinction whatsoever, okay? So if my goal as a therapist is to see you healed of your cancer, for instance, if my self-image and my ego and my happiness is that successful to see that cancer go away, guess what? That's not realistic. Because maybe that cancer goes away today and another one gets you 10 years from now. In the traditional Thai way, there's absolutely nothing, no statements good or bad about anything that anybody has suffering from anything. In other words, there is no bad disease. Because if there was a bad disease, and if there was one thing that needed to be cured, or if there was one thing that could be cured, it would be life. Because it is the only uniform epidemic, death-creating thing that we know of. Absolutely uniform. And so if I could cure anything, I wouldn't cure AIDS. I'd cure short life. Because one thing that we know if nothing else, if you do manage to live a little bit longer, the odds are that you will get just a little bit wiser. We know that. And so in the traditional Oriental way, we're not looking at putting too much emphasis on external results, because they're all seen as short-term. They're all seen as transitory. They're all seen as just a stage, both good and bad. Broken leg? It's not good, it's not bad. It's just broken. And it's going to be different tomorrow anyway. So why get all invested in it? It's transit. It's moving through you. It's moving through your life. The bottom line is called quality of life. See, it's unrealistic that I can resolve all the pain in your life. However, it is realistic that I can engender certain energies and certain qualities that enhance your ability to be a better you, to be more participatory in your life as it is, such as it is right now. I can help you to have an enhanced sense of quality of life, and I can do that every single time. Because I know for a fact, I might lay hands on you for a broken leg, and tomorrow you get run over by a bus. It can happen. And so if all of our happiness was tied up into that broken leg doing something, we missed it. Okay? Because what you're doing when you're in pain is not waiting for your life to happen. That's your life happening. And so we just accept that and do the best that we can with what we have in front of us. You think energy is contained in a meridian, a hair-like fiber line? No, energy is pervasive. Energy is pervasive. Energy does not respect physical boundaries. Energy goes through physical boundaries. So even meridian energy, you think meridian energy is on a line in your leg? No, heck man, your meridian energy is all the way across the room. In traditional energetic anatomy and physiology, your physical body is 50 feet in diameter. 50 feet up in the sky, 50 feet in the earth, 50 feet around. In fact, if you could really see what it looks like, it would look like a luminous ball of light. The closer I get to where you're sitting, the denser you become. You get thicker, you get denser, you get harder. The closer I get to the center of your luminosity, the epicenter of it, okay? And then I run into your gross, tangible physical body about 6 feet away. So we've proven that the body, for instance, generates an electric field. It's a DC potential electric field. It's measurable. We've proven that the body generates a magnetic field that's primarily a negative pole potential. We've proven it. We can measure it. Okay? Every church, every temple that's ever been created by man is a metaphor for the most sacred space that we can imagine, which is the temple inside of us, the repository of our spirit, of our soul. How do I tell when love energy is moving? How do I tell if healing energy is moving? Well, in your life, you will notice people nearby you becoming more whole, becoming more integral, becoming more sound, becoming more balanced. So when I come to lay hands on someone to do a treatment, I consider them as sacred space. And I consider that when I come into the place where I'm going to work on the person, that I am entering a sacred, holy place. I have this in my mind. Because I'm also at the same time acknowledging that my mind is influential in how I will act, how I will project myself, and how I will influence what's going to occur with this person. And so the technology is saying, think a sacred thought when you're going to try and do something special. Knowing that her body is larger than what I can see, I stop and I acknowledge that. From the knowingness of it, mentally acknowledge the space, her real body. My eyes lie to me. I want to know if I'm blind. All right, so then I come in nice and close, just to begin to acclimate. And already I feel the warmth and the heat of her body. Hey, that warmth is just as much part of her body as any other part. A lot of times in session as therapists, we postpone resolving things because we don't want to lose the treatment time. I'd really like to work through this issue with you, but we've only got 45 minutes to get your treatment done. So let's go to it, and we'll try and work that out later, which of course we already knew we didn't have time for, or we would have done it first. We already knew that. It was up on the board. But here's what happens is not enhancing facilitation of communication, also enhancing facilitation of energy? Is before I touch her, I want to know who am I in this equation. Now partly, why am I here? Why do I have a right to be here? Why do I have a right to believe that if I put my hand on her or if I work with her that she's going to get better? Partly, I have that understanding through my lineage. My teacher told me that because I was here in the right way and I was authorized to be here and I had completed the prerequisites of being able to be here, as in I completed my training, I worked with a real teacher, and I was given permission to do this, that because of all these things, that traditional line that's always been in history would even accept me as a vessel. So I acknowledge that in my mind. In my mind, the way I do the acknowledgement is I think the thought. And it just takes that much time. It doesn't take any length of time at all. But I do it before I do anything else. All right? So I acknowledge my lineage. All right? The next thing is that I clean house. So I've acknowledged the space, I've acknowledged my lineage, I clean house. The way that I clean house is I ask myself a question. Is there anything that keeps me from being able to be completely with her in the right way now? And so if something comes up between me and her, before I go to do the session with her, I must clear that up, if I can. I must. As healers, we must be moving toward greater and greater degrees of integrity. We must. Less ego, more integrity. That's our progress is measured by these hallmarks. Well, here is a place that is perfect for practicing focus. It's a perfect place for practicing creating integrity. It is a perfect place for practicing becoming a hollow tube. This encounter situation, it is the ideal. That's why we say this is the highest meditation. Not the meditation that you do in the privacy of your closet. This is it. Why? Because the energy for healing is not dependent on what points did you push, really. Any points that we push, any things that we do, any asanas or postures that we facilitate are all in addition to helping to own and to kind of manifest the energy maybe in a fuller way. But is the energy dependent on it? Absolutely not. The next thing I do after I clean house, so I'm working toward this empty vessel, to this hollow tube, the next thing that I do is generate the bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, the simplest way of describing bodhicitta is it is the most perfect thought that a mind can carry. What is the most perfect thought that a mind can carry? The thought that may all beings be free from suffering. One of the things we say about nuatai is it is as much for the person doing it as for the person receiving it. It must be. Because if I'm the path, I've got to have some help. That's the first part of the puja. The last part of the puja is called listening. And what I do is I listen for 4 rhythms. Let's say 3 rhythms. Everything in the body has a voice. Every part of the body has a voice. Every bone, every muscle, every organ, every tendon, every nerve, every lymph duct, everything in the body moves. And with time and experience, you learn how to differentiate all the different voices. This is the orchestra. Everything here has a voice. Every organ has a voice, like a section. Like we have percussion section, which we call heart, cardiovascular, cardiopulmonary voice, or pulse. We have a woodwind section. We call that lung. And what we do first is listen to the big ones and kind of sort them out, because before you can start talking about the energetic voices, you need to learn how to hear the physical voices that are common, because they're pervasive. So for instance, the biggest rhythm, the biggest pulse that you can feel in the body is the respiratory pulse. In other words, you can look at a person across the street and tell if they're breathing or not. The first thing I do is ask myself, is my client breathing? If they're breathing, I continue. If they're not breathing, I don't work on it. That's called scope of practice, right? So yes or no, are they breathing? So I'm listening for the pulse. Once I've answered that, the next question is, where is the breath? See, if there is breath, it must be somewhere. It will always be somewhere. It's going to be high, middle, or low. The heart pulse. Every part of the body has access to cardiovascular, cardiopulmonary circulation. Okay? And so we should be able to feel it everywhere. We should be able to see it everywhere. And so here again, I want to ask myself, is the heart beating? Now, we know there's a direct relationship between breathing and the heart. Imagine that heart beating. Imagine that I can see the heart beating and make the heart beat louder until I feel it. And this is called the right use of imagination. In other words, if I can't feel it, I imagine what it must be doing, and that imagination will lead my real sensing to the real heart. The last pulse that I want you to feel for is called the peristalsis. If you imagine the circulation of food and matter and waste products through the abdomen, large and small intestine and stomach, through evacuation from bladder and rectum, that is moving in a clockwise spiraling fashion around the abdomen. And it is a quite large motion that you should be able to feel. And what you look for is a sense of a spiraling sensation around the outside of your hand predominantly. And that's the peristalsis. Now the reason why it's important to feel things like heart and breath and stomach or peristalsis is because those are gross physical pulses, gross physical rhythms. We talk about things in energy, about chakras and meridians and acupuncture points and wind gates. And how can we talk about feeling the wind in a chakra? I mean, when really what you're feeling is like pizza from lunch. Right? So it's like we must differentiate the gross physical rhythms clearly before we have a chance of thinking that we're actually feeling meridian energy. What's happening is, just because I'm doing the listening, I'm connecting with her. Her stomach is way hotter than it was before I started. The heat has really come up. The heat has really come up in my hand. I'm very much closer to her. I'm less over here and she's over there. In fact, the dividing line between us has become noticeably more permeable. I use a visualization in my listening as I'm sitting here. I imagine that I'm a hollow person, that my arm is a hollow tube, and that there's no bottom on my hand, no dividing line between this hollow person, and that she's hollow from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. Well, one thing I want to do is really emphasize the importance of flow. Now, a couple of things about flow. Number one, flow means go. If you're not moving, you're not flowing. That's very simple. Okay? Flow means go. The more technical definition of flow is when you emphasize the transitions between techniques as much or more than the techniques themselves. So we're de-emphasizing technique application, and we're actually emphasizing what? The places between the techniques. Oh, wait a minute, Anthony, what are you saying? Well, in other words, if I'm palming the leg, that's an application of a technique called palming the leg. Well, the next technique is working the lines on the foot, thumb pressing the lines on the foot. Flow is when I emphasize what happened between those two, as much as either of them. And the way that I see it is that flow emulates the way energy really happens in life. Energy is absolutely in movement and in motion and in transition. And when we are still or stagnant, another word would be stuck, and we're just trying to get the technique right, we are not promoting the free flow of energy. When we are flowing, we're actually emulating the nature of energy itself, which is in flux and flow and motion. Okay? The technique and the terrain under our technique is incidental to the result we're trying to create, which ultimately is the free flow and expression of the fullness of the capacity to flow of the person's energy. So we're emulating that motion. We believe that the energy moving is more important than the value of doing anything exactly right. If you're doing the flowing energy, let's talk about that first. If you're doing the flowing practice to your friend, your partner, don't go hard. Don't apply much pressure. Automatically, if you are moving, you must use less pressure. Okay? You will accomplish more with less pressure. Don't try to apply the same pressure that you would use if you were doing a static technique when you're moving. Okay? That's number one. So when I'm doing the practice, when I'm flowing, I want to relax. I want to relax. I want to keep breathing, always breathing. We practice what's called continuous breathing. That means that every time there's an application of pressure, however momentary, there is a slight exhalation. The next thing is I'm moving light, I'm breathing, I'm not stopping. Don't go fast, go slow. Pa Kusama used to say, Fik hat, cha-cha noi daimai. Fik hat, practice every day, cha-cha noi, the slow, slow way. Can you every day practice the slow, slow way? That as you're doing the flowing practice, go slow. Because what it allows you to do is anticipate what comes next in time, so that when you finish what you're doing, you can step right to it in a seamless transition and go right into the next method that you're doing without dropping the package, without losing sort of the energetic integrity, the continuity of the progression of energy that you're trying to create with your client. What we're looking for is a cumulative release, which is a result of a progression of related events, which cause the inclination for the energy to move to become more overwhelming than the inclination to stay sedentary. Okay? Now, further little ideas for practice. When you're practicing flow with your friends, do not stop them and remind them that they have forgotten something or done something wrong. Because all of the information you need to master the technique is in the flowing practice. Because the technique has no value unless it's facilitating the flow of energy. So we're starting with that first, and then we build the technique out of the sense of flowing. We only emphasize technique after we have the sense of the continuity of our expression. See, I look at every therapeutic encounter as one expression of therapeutic intent, not a string of little techniques that might help. And when you get to that state, guess what? That's called a change in consciousness. Because it's a big difference in consciousness from what comes next consciousness to I'm just doing it. Palm the feet. See how I'm just rocking from side to side? Just palm pressing the feet like I'm leaning on them. Get the heels. Palm walk up the medial leg, the female side of the leg. Big sloppy circles on the knees. Palm walk up the inside thigh to the wind gates. Lean forward and press on, press off, and palm walk back down. The feet, I'm not looking at my hands. Okay? Rocking, I'm doing like my Ray Charles thing. Here we go. Rocking, rocking, rocking. Okay? Finish. People. The two most common things that therapeutically, or three things that we do therapeutically in energy-focused body work are balancing, grounding, and centering. And maybe centering and balancing might even be the same. Okay? But grounding is certainly very, very important. There's no more reassuring surface that you can put your body, expose your body to than the earth. Nothing more solid, nothing more stable. Okay? And on some level, it engenders a relaxation reflex that you can get no other way. A line of consciousness that moves from the center of the sun to the center of the earth. We say from the heaven to the earth, and we're on it. Okay, remember, man is or woman is communication vessel on that line between heaven and earth. That's that golden thread. I'm on it. That line runs through the center of the top of my head, through the center of my cranium, the center of my throat, the center of my torso. It exits at the midmost point of my perineum, moves between my knees, and exits just forward of my ankle through the crest of my foot to the center of the earth. Okay, and that's the center of gravity in my body. That's where the maximum facilitation of energy and strength for me occurs. Every inch that I get off of that line, I lose strength and I lose facility. For instance, all martial arts in the world are based on that understanding. In other words, we call it in martial arts, we call it center line. I can create more pressure with less effort by simply moving my belly into the area that I want to create pressure. just because my center line approaches the center of the part of the body that I'm trying to put pressure on, makes it a more efficient motion. And as soon as I move my belly, we say hara or tanden, or in Thai, sadung. As soon as the sadung comes into proximity with what I want to work, I have pressure without effort. Arms are shock absorbers. It's every degree that I bend the arms when I'm trying to apply pressure is a degree that I'm losing that pressure. The next thing is, as I'm pressing on the leg here, I'm not looking at my hands, okay? The reason why is if I look at my hands, I sacrifice my posture and I sacrifice that energy relationship of the straight spine. We actually want to sit up nice and straight and keep the back as straight as possible at all times. We have a rule in Nuat Thai, and the rule is we don't look at our hands, we look through our hands. We don't look at our hands, we look through our hands. And that's unique to Thai body work. So you don't have to look. Now watch what happens. As soon as I sit up straight and press, if you could see from the back, you can see that now my back is straight, okay? That my head is now sitting somewhere near over my shoulders, okay, which is where it's supposed to be most of the time, okay? And I can actually relax. My breathing is unrestricted, okay? So my breath is flowing freely. And I'm thinking more about what I'm feeling than what I'm seeing. So I frame the work area. I sit as close to in front of what I want to work as possible. And I use a rocking motion to create pressure. My weight is an absolute constant. So when I develop my pressure from leaning, the base that I'm using to apply pressure is absolutely constant. We found that it doesn't matter from person to person if they're highly sensitive or they're not sensitive at all. You always have the correct pressure. What makes it different is not my intent to be different with a bodybuilder than different with a person with cancer. Their energy balancing with mine and what the universe has in store for us makes all those distinctions. Okay. As soon as I've worked the outside of the leg 3 times, I come to the foot, and I like to straighten the leg out. So I give it a little pull. Okay, it's just this is not a big deal. This is literally just get lightly a hold of the foot and just give it a little tug. All I'm doing is I just don't want the leg bent at all. So I give it just a little pull to make sure that it's straight. Okay, from the top of the foot, can I take your sock off? Okay, looking at the top of the foot, what I'm going to do is thumb circles on the top of the ankle, like so. And then using a sweeping motion, which is called Klai Sen, or snake thumb in Thai. I work line number 1 from the top of the ankle to the big toe. I work it 1 time. I call this a sweep and drag motion because one thumb follows while the other thumb works. You see how I'm doing that? And I come down to the big toe 1 time. Again, as I'm here, I'm not looking down at the foot. And then I come back and do some more circles on top of the ankle and work line number 2. Line number 2 is a broad motion down the center of the top of the foot. Just right down the most central part of the top of the foot. And I'm doing a big sweeping motion, so I'm virtually covering the whole foot. Okay? This is a general stimulation. All right, line number 3 is the outside edge of the foot, extreme outside edge of the foot. And so you pinch the edge of the foot, working to the little toe. You see that? Now the top hand, the one not pinching, does a dragging motion with the thumb. So it's pinch and drag, pinch and drag, pinch and drag, pinch and drag. Now see between those 3 lines, I've covered the whole top of the foot. That leaves me at the little toe. Pick up the little toe, circle and pull, circle and pull, circle and pull, circle and pull, circle and pull. It's circle and pull. And see how even though it's just a little toe, how I lean? The least little application of pressure, I involve my body. Now you just saw me palm the leg, right? Step by step, down like this. The first way to practice this is not to do this, okay? Because actually, I'm not trying to teach you how to palm correctly. I actually believe that it takes a couple of years of practice to develop your palms. Okay, to have palm facility, I call it. But what I wanted is to get the general idea of a communication, of a seamless thread of energy. The way that we do that is by drawing the line. In my mind, I say palm press, but what I do in practice is I draw 1, 2, 3. Just like that. As soon as I get to the foot, I go to the foot. When I go in my mind, thumb circle and thumb the line. And so I go line number 1. I just draw the line. Go 2. Line number 2. I draw the line. I go to 3. And I draw the line. Move the foot over just slightly. Just pick it up and move it over. That's not too hard. And then sit down next to the foot. My hip to her ankle. Hip to ankle. Pick up the foot with both hands a little bit, like about 6 or 8 inches. Then using the inside leg, the leg closest to her center line, push her foot out and over into this position. And push with my leg. And oh, it's magic. Her leg goes exactly where it's supposed to be. Okay? Now, her knee is up a little bit. That's totally okay. I'm not attached to what this looks like. I have an ideal I'm working with. It'd be nice, but I like her shin is parallel with my shin. Her knee is up nice and high. I want the point of this knee to be parallel with the ASIS on the opposite side. That's the anterior superior iliac spine, or the front of the pelvis or hip on the opposite side. I like a straight line across here. On this leg, as soon as I get to this point, I push her leg out with my foot. I bring this foot right in snug to me, and I lock it right up against me. This hand is on top, and then with an easy rolling motion, I press directly into the most posterior aspect of the upper leg with the bottom of my foot. And I work that line 3 times. Mother Earth is helping us here because just winging the leg out like this, the gravity pulling that leg down is putting pressure on the internal rotators of the hip. So I'm getting some nice deep traction in the pelvis just because we're here. This is what's called postural facilitation. This is what yoga is all about. So then I work the line, 1, 2, 3. I get me out of the way, I move him out of the way, looking for this little opening in front of the ankle. Use my hands on the mat to roll up onto my knee. Stand up nice and straight. So this is for me. Okay? Correct my back. The knees up, supporting the knee, and straighten the leg out. Easy as you please. So a little caution. Contraindication in this position is you never pull the leg out straight. Just raise the knee up, one hand under the knee, and lay the leg down. And that's perfect. Now, the next thing, see where I'm sitting, almost like I was in puja, but below the line of the hips. So from the ASIS, or anterior superior iliac spine, to the AIIS, the anterior inferior iliac spine, is a line. The inguinal ligament is the demarcation between the thigh and the abdomen and groin. Everything above the inguinal ligament we consider abdomen and groin. Everything below the inguinal ligament we consider thigh. Okay? The inguinal ligament is what is stretched between the ASIS and the AIIS, to use their acronym, right? Now you'll feel it on the it's on a diagonal, sometimes called the panty line. The reason why I'm pointing this out is that the femoral pulse is below the inguinal ligament. It's important. So when you're looking for the femoral pulse, if you feel that ligament or that sensitive area, you're way too high. You want to be down and medial of that ligament. And what we do is take the fingers right next to each other and feel for the pulse. So we start superficial, and we press in, hands next to each other. Oh, boom, I'll feel the pulse under one or more fingers. I feel the pulse. I mark it with a finger on the outside hand. Now, outside is the one farthest away from his center line. I cross that finger at right angles with my inside palm. Cross it. And then I support it with the other hand. Come up, and shifting the weight inside and forward, I lean on my hands and press the pulse. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3. No movement while you're here. It'll be very still. It's nice, solid, firm, still, static pressure. Count to 10. At the end of 10 count, back off and release to the surface of the skin. You'll feel an increase of heat, a spike of warmth that'll get hot under your hand. Wait till the heat goes away. It comes up, it goes away before you remove your hand. Another definition of a Wingate is it's if chi or prana was going to be stagnant in the body, there are 71 places where it's most likely to do that. So the arm is out. If you fold the base of the hand together, there's a line right down the middle. You see this? Okay? I have one too. I cross hers at the base of the hand with mine. Like the arm a little bit down, a little bit, and straight. So I'm not putting palm to palm like this. It's actually crossing the carpal bones with the carpal bones. So what this is about is decompressing the carpal bones. And when I lock the hands up like this, I will tend to do that. So that's the first thing. Take care of that and pin it down. Next is the other hand, inside hand, goes straight down on top of the round ball of the shoulder. Straight down on top of the round ball of the shoulder. Keep your hands soft. There's a soft hand, there's a hard hand. The hard hand is like got a biting edge, feels like it has an edge to it, and that's very uncomfortable. Keep the hand really soft. What I'm going to do is just rock up on my knees and hands and count to 10. I'm in position right now. 1, 2, 3. Just letting my weight sink into the hand and shoulder. Hold it for 10. And rock off to the surface and wait. I'll feel the same heat that I felt at the hip. This is the same wind gate, another wind gate, same concept. I wait, I feel the heat come up, I feel the heat go away, and then from there, using a rocking motion, I palm press the medial arm all the way to my other hand. I work this arm 3 times. Again, I'm not lifting my bottom up every time. It's not necessary. I'm in good position here just to rock and sink, okay? Not looking at my hand. Look what would happen just to look at my hand. Okay? So I could be here. This is better. Okay? Now, turn the hand over and rotate. Now I'm at the outside of the arm. One hand on the cap of the shoulder. Cover the hand facing fingers same direction as hers. Okay? Knees a little bit wide. Just press in just for a moment. And then using the rocking, palm down the outside of the arm.
Even the elbow then.
Right across the top of the elbow. And again, if they do have some history of carpal, you want to absolutely make sure you get pressure across the elbow here. Very important. Okay, so work that line. 1, 2, 3. All right? Finish. Support the knee. And remember, push the knee and the hand at the same time. Oh, it's so hard. Sometimes when you roll a person over, there are 2 things. One, you want to make sure there's a pillow under the head. Here, let's step this up so it's a little more substantial for you. The head is supported. You want to make sure there's a pillow under the head, not their arm. Okay, pillow under the head. And sometimes you notice that this leg will be under the straight leg. There's the tie way, which is put one hand above the knee, like this, just finger above the knee, one hand lightly below the knee, and just bump, and it's done. One leg is straight. This is the inferior leg. This is the superior leg. Inferior, superior just means close to the floor, close to the ceiling. That's all it means, all right? So we address the straight leg, palm the foot. There's a nice little handle here for most people. If you can't get inside the ball of the arch of the foot here, then just put your hand on the heel. That's okay. Anywhere here that's comfortable is okay. This hand straight down on the inside line. See where she has the seam on her pants? That's the line, okay? Once I come here, and I just rock up and off. Now, you notice now I'm getting my bottom up in the air. The reason why is the line is on top of the body. And so when the line is on top of the body, I've got to get my bottom up in the air. When it was more on the side of the body, I stay low and just rock. Okay? But now I can come up. So I'm working just on and off. Keep this hand nice and floppy and soft. The palm, the leg. Now I don't, no direct pressure on the knee. So just skip over the knee. And up, and again, don't look at the hands. And what's my posture here? See how I let my belly hang? Don't be ashamed that you have a belly, like where even while you're working, you're trying to hold your belly together. Okay? I see that all the time. Okay? What I want you to do is just Boom. It's just let your belly hang. Just let it hang, okay? Because this is called hara, and this is the center for your chi, energy. And actually, we believe that a nice round belly is a sign of health, okay? It's a healthy person has a little roundness to their belly, okay? So,
Some are healthier than others.
some of us are way healthier than others. Okay, so I palm the line 3 times, because also, here's what it does to the back. I want my back just to relax and sink. As opposed to, if I look at my hands and lift my stomach, this is what my posture turns into. See, I'm holding myself up while I'm trying to press, and you'll see something that looks like this. Contrast this with la 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 la. First thing I do is knee behind the knee, bring it up. Oh, it doesn't fit. This knee does not move. I just dial to face her a little bit, and it's perfectly into my hip. The arm on the same side, straight into my side, and then just lean forward. And that's all I have to do. Just move the foot a little bit to create the compression. See how easy that is? Slide the foot off a little bit. This is now my platform. I'm using my body as the table. And I get a nice big circle. And I want to get the full motion on the ankle, and I'm grinding into the toes a little bit because I want to get some lateral motion on the toes. Anytime you can get some lateral motion or rotation into the toes, do it, because it's completely counter to what your shoes do to your feet. Okay, anything that you can get to open the feet or get those toes moving is actually really good. Both ways, and I like to come out of that circle into the stretch. Okay. And that, see how easy that was? Fold the leg over to the opposite side, align it along with my hip, and then pretending that this inside knee is nailed to the floor is my pivot point. I put my hand on the opposite side, lift my hips up so that I can rotate my hips in, bringing her heel into her bottom. Once I'm here, I just sit up nice and straight and strain while I hold her in the stretch. 3, 4, 5, and then I release the stretch. I just back out, take it out, and then this is just called making nice. You just kind of roll the leg 3 times from hip down to the foot. Okay, just called making nice. Make nice. 1, 2, 3. Step across into a lunge position. This is a lunge position. Notice I correct my own posture first before I do anything for her. Anytime I can straighten my back out, correct my pelvis or hip or back, I do. Anywhere I can, I do. And that's traditional. My arms never bent. As soon as I bend my arms, I'm dissipating energy. So here's another way to see it. Chi's flowing through the arm. I can bend my arm a little bit, and we can still call that a straight arm. As soon as I bend my arm too much, the chi's now going out the elbow as much as it's going out the hand. If I bend it more, this is called a collapsed arm, now most of the chi is going out the elbow, and virtually none of the chi is going into the hand. So I pin the foot, his hands up on the upper leg, and I rock forward to create pressure. And the pressure is a function of moving in and out of the lunge. Okay, see, I'm not looking at my hand. Watch what happens if I look at my hand, if I have to. See, it's different. Now I have to push. Okay? But if I let this settle out, now I can just lunge. And the pressure is just there because I'm there. And it's going to the right place because of the posture that we're in. Okay? I'll work this line. 1, 2, 3. Okay? And that's it. And now what I'm doing is I'm doing a nice rolling thumb. Rolling thumb is where you're doing a little bit of a kneading motion with the thumb, but you're not moving the thumb. The way I get the thumb to move is by moving the wrist. So push, lift, like this. If you could just imagine your arm as a hose, okay, and the water is flowing through that hose out the bottom of your hand. You want to get your thumb in the stream. You want to get your thumb in the stream, which means you can't see it. I'm using what's called a reinforced thumb. Now the problem is, you're not going to be able to see my thumb because I can't even see my thumb. The reason why I can't see my thumb is because it's under my hand. The reason my thumb's under my hand is because that's where the chi is. If I could see my thumb, the chi's going over here, but my thumb's pressing over here. So that's very inefficient. In other words, if I'm working here and I can see my thumbs, remember the chi is coming out this point in the palm chakra. That's where the energy is going into her body. Well, that point is over this part of the back, but my thumb is about 4.5 inches from me. Every degree that my thumb is off that line is I'm losing energy that I'm putting into my thumb, and is a strain to my thumb. And so this is why if people work like this, where they can see that thumb winged out there, that thumb is going to break down eventually. So it's a much more fine, it's a much finer technique to lift the wrist to move the thumb than it is to move the thumb on its own.
Are you on top of the spine?
Above the spine, superior back, above the spine. Exactly where I'm at is in the Lamina Groove. Lamina Groove is the empty place between the vertical spinous process and the next set of paraspinal muscles. There's actually a hollow place on either side of the spine. That's a groove from top to bottom. And that groove is called the Lamina Groove. Work the back 3 times. Now I want you to see also my posture. Frame the back, everything that's inside of my legs. See how I can work the whole length of the spine without leaning? This is correct. This is not correct. See how I'm shifting? That's not correct. What is correct is that you just turn and face the point that you want to work without leaning. Anything to keep from leaning is a good thing. Here. Because see, you notice I'm still not bending my arm. How do I press without bending the arm? See where it's coming from? It's really coming from here. And then there's the rocking from the upper body. And I develop a little rhythm here. And there's a lot of pressure. There's no strain to my arm. The straighter my arms are, the more directly I communicate this breath to my client, like this. So you work all the way up. So far so good. Okay? And then step over the head, but not on the head. Back into a lunge. And then starting them against the spine, all the way to the base of the cranium. Okay? Notice that I'm keeping my arms straight. One hand only. Fingers are toward the floor. When I was working on the back, my fingers were toward the ceiling. When I'm working on the neck, they're toward the floor in this position. Notice again, I'm in a lunge. Now, how do I get pressure on her neck without bending my arm? What I've done here is instead of having to squeeze my hand to create the pressure to work the points, I just move my body forward just a little bit. So the part of my body that's responsible for sensing what's happening under the hand is no longer responsible for creating the pressure. So all the hand is doing is focusing, guiding, and reading the result, but it's not generating the power to create that result. Three times. 1, 2, 3, and finish. Okay? And then from here, I like to do some big grindy thumb circles around the ear. You hear this? You want to hear that sound. As the thumb grinds over the hair, that's actually creating a vibration. Okay? And this is very nice. Okay, so we go around 1, 2, 3. And back up below the hips. Bring the arm down. And this is called a pre-stretch, where I just pull her over. Okay? So the pre-stretch is important. Now, if I do the pre-stretch, and I start to bring her over, and she stops like a brick wall, right here, well then maybe I'm not going to go too much farther than that when I do the stretch. Okay? But if when I rotate her into the pre-stretch, she goes all the way over, it's quite okay to take her all the way to the mat. All right? Now, once you take a person into a rotation, you always pull them right out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some rocking on his back, and I'm going to use my foot. Before I touch him though, I lift my leg and I pause just for a moment before I touch him to double check my balance. I place my foot on his back very deliberately. My foot is low on the back across the crest of the hips. Okay? And then what I do is, starting from my hips, I start a little back and forth motion, which becomes a rocking motion. Once he gets moving, I move less and he moves more. Remember, the rule again is that you start from left side for woman, right side for man. That's always, always, always the rule. Every time we change the posture, that's the presentation it's called. I always present from right side for man, left side for woman. Okay? So I'm on his right side because that's working out for our little demo, and I step across. Now, as I step across, I put my knee down close, hand on him, before I lift my foot. Because I don't want, again, to kind of get up here and whoops, sorry about that. I don't want to trip on him. I want to step over in a slow and calculating fashion, and then turn my body so I'm facing. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to palm the back. So I start nice and close to my hips, fingers are turned away from the spine, and I just rock forward, and I place bilateral palm compression on the back. And the way I create pressure is just by rocking forward. So on, pressure, off, no pressure. I'm taking steps approximately the width of my hand. Okay? Now, all I really want to work is up and down one time. Now, that's palming the back. The next step is stretching the back. It looks very similar, but it's a little different. One hand is going to move up and down. The other hand is going to remain where it's at, but it's going to rotate at the same time. So here's how it looks. As the hand is walking up, the bottom hand is following by rotating. My fingers are actually staying on the same line, even though the one hand is walking up and down. My hands are still on opposite sides of the back. So I go up and down from one side back to my starting point, and then right here I change sides and do the other side in the same fashion. Now if I put both hands on his jacket, you can see what's happening. Don't watch my hands. Watch between my hands. And the same action that you see happening in his jacket is what's actually happening in the fascia and connective tissue in his back. Round arch to round bottom. That tells me which foot to use. Notice that my supporting leg is at right angles and that I've got a little bend in both legs. Okay? The way that I create pressure is I sway my body forward and I sway back. I do not press down. I change position when I'm back and I go down. The closer I get to the knee, the lighter the pressure. And then as I move back up toward the hip, I can go heavier. Now I do not look at my feet. Change sides and work the lower leg with the opposite foot. And now the rule is round arch to round heel. That tells me what foot to use. Okay, so I work this a little bit lighter. Use less pressure on the lower leg than you did on the upper leg. And then I walk around and do the opposite leg. Come to the feet. I want you to do the feet. First it's heel down, lever over onto the bottom of the foot. Walk up, make sure you have your balance. It's heel down, then pressure on the ball of the foot. So really my weight is on the heels of my feet. And then I gradually add a little weight to the balls of my feet. And then just like a cat, pads, have you ever seen a cat do this where they just kind of grab a little bit? I do the same thing on the bottom of her feet. Okay, just for a moment or two, not long. Then turn around, facing the opposite direction, and go ball of the foot, lever back with the heel. Check the other ball of the foot, lever back with the heel. Gradually add pressure onto the heels. Now I do the same thing with the heels, walking the ball of the foot. The feet about a shoulder width apart. Walk up so that you're even below the line of the knees. Toes are below the line of the knees. Hands to the mat. Rock forward so the knees go to the base of the glute and sit up straight. The hands slide down the legs on top of the sacrum, and I rock up on top of my knees and hands like a billy goat. Okay, I stay there just for a moment, so it's just rock on and rock off. See, just slide down, rock on, and rock off. Just one time. Now next, I'm going to palm the back by rocking up and walking up the back. Walk to the top of the shoulders, a little stretch, and walk down. I'm taking steps the width of my hand, and walk up, keeping the hands as soft as you can. And when you get to the top, drag down the arms to the forearm, wrist or forearm. Hold my arms, take a nice big breath, and exhale. And as she exhales, I give her a little stretch. And she's got a nice motion, so we'll pull her right on up. And down, drop the hands down, okay, and back out. Do that. We have an easy way to do everything. Please turn over. So the first supine position was the one we started in. This is the second one. This position is also called stomach because this is the point where we do bring emphasis to the abdomen or to the belly, okay, or stomach. Now, when I was talking about respecting the threshold of the person's energetic body, of their space, acknowledging the body at 50 feet, if you could visualize that. If you could visualize the body at 6 feet, becoming very dense and becoming denser and denser, almost like you must be moving through resistance of their body as you come to this part of the tangible physical body, which is more dense. It's not solid. That again, that's an illusion created because we can't see very well. We have the appearance of solidity. But it is more dense. And as if we acknowledge the sacredness of that space coming into the energetic body, then we must double again acknowledge the space of the abdomen. This is, if the body is a metaphor as a temple, of a sacred space, then the stomach is the inner sanctum or holy place inside the temple. It's actually, that one point on our body is actually the only point of reference on the human body that has a distinctive history all the way back to the moment of conception. Okay, it's actually the only point in the body that you could say that about. In acupuncture, this is a trivia question. What point on the body can you, through acupuncture, can you treat all the meridians? Well, it's the navel, the umbilicus. It's the only point on the body where all the meridians meet and end. And when you look at this navel, what you're looking at is the history of that primal origination into the physical world. This is where your spirit energy manifested into the physical world. There's the history of it. And actually, the history, the evolution from this moment all the way back to the moment of conception is found right here. Okay? Now, that should explain, for instance, why, if you're going to hold any kind of trauma from any kind of thing, you're most likely to hold it in here. Okay? That's why. Because this is the origin insertion of all the lines, energy lines and chakras and so on, it is the one point on the body where you can communicate with all of them, both between yourself and with other people. And also, by the way, this is why the uterus happens to be behind the navel. And why the new babies who are being created and so on, why they chose this area to incubate. Because it's the one area where the newly developing fetus has access to all of the chakras and all of the meridians and all of the organ energy and all of that from the mother. Okay, because it was the first wind gate. And some styles of Thai medicine, all evaluation and diagnosis is based on evaluating the navel. The shape of it, the character of it, the depth of it, the distortions in it, inclinations. And actually what the teaching is that your navel changes throughout your life. Well, I especially want to make sure that I come in a humble way, and in a quiet way, and in a good way into the inner temple. All right. Now, traditionally in Nuat Thai, most of the time we work with the clothes on, but this is the only time. Can I pull your shirt up? Is that okay? All right. All right. Can you lift it just a little bit so I can see your nice belly here? Okay. This is the only time that the tradition and the prescription is to work on the skin. Okay. And the reason why, first of all, I can't see her navel if I don't look. Okay? I can sort of find it through the clothing, but I can't see it. And for me as a practitioner, actually, I will want to look at that and make some determination about her from it. Now, from your point of view, that might be hard to understand. I understand that. I want to give you one Western sensibility that might lend some credence to this ancient belief. You have this system in the body that people are learning a lot about nowadays called the connective tissue system, or the myofascial system, the fascial system, okay? And especially in the abdomen, you have large planes of fascia that differentiate both the skin from the viscera and the viscera from each other, the organs from each other. They encapsulate the organs and they support the organs so they don't just flop about willy-nilly, okay? Well, the fascial planes, which run literally in the abdomen from the knee to the diaphragm, okay, which my friend Dr. Sandra Boone used to call the Psoas diaphragmatic complex, okay, are broad sheets of material. And according to the stress or strain inside the system, they pull and tug on each other and distort that fascia system. Any distortion anywhere in the fascia will result in another distortion somewhere else. And so any distortion anywhere in the system is reflected in the navel. Okay? And then just with a back and forth motion, what I'm going to do is just going to rock and circle. Now I have the whole surface of my hand, and I'm making a circle on the whole round shape of the belly. Okay? That's really nice. And just let your hand kind of conform to the shape of the belly, and you just kind of go. Now see how the motion is not like scrubbing, okay? What I'm doing is I'm rocking. And so even though on her stomach it feels like a circular motion, the impetus for that circular motion is a gentle rocking on my part. And that is nurturing motion, and I communicate that through my hands. And so what I do here is I just kind of get into a nice relaxed state of mind, still in my Vipassana state of mind, and I do 30 circles. Just like we were going to turn her in side position, that's the same, except I'm not going to let her go. I come up here, capture the shoulder, and then take a nice breath, and exhale. And take the leg over. As long as she's exhaling, I push. When she stops breathing and stops moving, I stop pushing and come right out. Support the knee and straighten the leg. Okay, let's do the other leg. Cross the foot at the knee. Come out to the shoulder. Take a breath. And exhale. Nice. And take it right out. Okay. And come to the feet. There are a couple of different ways to lift the feet up. One way is if I'm down, I push up and push out in one motion. Okay? So it's up and out in one motion. Now as I push out, I drop my head forward, then come up on my knees, step forward with my strong leg, and walk up behind the leg. See how I got here? Like climbing stairs. That's one way. The other way, at your discretion, is to squat and pick up the legs. This is a squat. My heels are flat, my feet are flat, my head is up, my bottom is down, okay? And so see, I'm not bending over, I'm not bending my back, and I just pick them up and do that. And inversions are great because they're really good as far as reversing the effects of gravity. Straight legs, place your hands on your knees. Now I'll give you some instructions. You have to learn how to receive this, just like you have to learn how to do it. So step nice and deep. So I'm past her feet. If I'm strong at the beginning, I'll be weak at the end. All right, nice big breath. Exhale. Pull, turn, and push. That's how I get in there. Now this is what I mean by zero balance. It's just very little pressure that takes the holding there. You see that? So I'm not straining once we're in position. Now, once we're here, now if you, I try to buckle the knees, those legs are kind of stiff. Okay? To make his legs bend easier, I put a little upward pressure on the toes, and the knees just buckle. Okay? And down, hold my arms. Okay, take a nice breath, and exhale. Up, one, and stretch. This is a cross-leg pull-up. Two, and stretch. And three. Giving the stretch at the top. Walk out. Walk around behind the person, keeping in touch with them. So now I'm as close to the neck as I can get to her without strangling her. Okay? So I'm right up against the side of the neck. I'm just not squeezing her neck. Okay? So I arch my back or collapse my back a little bit, take a breath, and exhale and sink. This is more perching than pressing. I'm not so much pushing down as I am. I've bent my knees, relaxed my back, and I've leaned forward a little bit, put my weight into my hands. I follow down one breath, two breaths, and then release on the third breath. Go out a little wider, and do the same thing again. And then on the third breath, we release the pressure. Nice and easy, okay? Now, from here, you want to start high on the arms and scoop the arms up to grab the wrist. Okay? Watch again. I start high on the arms and scoop the arms up to grab the wrist. Hands are together. Now what I'm going to do here is called a standing arm pull. The main thing I'm trying to do here is just to get her sitting up straight and get the arms to come up straight in line with the body. Then I step back a little bit and bow my hip out and stretch. And then lean in. The second part of this, that's the first part. The second part is I drop the hands down, tuck the arms up tight under the armpit, and using my legs, I lift just until she starts to come up. And then I row again into the arm pull. 2. And down. Up. And 3. And down, up, and relax. Okay, so do it 3 times. So this technique is called Ardis Mansyandra, which is the half fish or half whale. So it is a bridge. So I come up and get the base of the neck as high on the neck as I can get, cupping the base of the cranium, and I squeeze the neck a little bit. Not so tight that it's painful, but enough that it's a firm, positive contact. Okay, I'll reach around, 4 fingers right on the sternum. I'll take a nice big breath. Exhale, and push back, and collapse back, all the way. Once the head goes back, I go to the hip, and to the shoulder, and now we're in a nice bridge. If this is okay, if we're all the way down and I feel that the head is all the way down, I can extend the bridge by raising the hands over the head, and I keep track of the outside arm. That will keep her from sliding off, and then we'll rock in this position. See how it's a much deeper back bend? Mm-hmm. Now to come out, I've got to come out the same way I went in. I prefer to put the hands on the stomach, and then it's chin to chest first, and then rock the whole body up and out. Now, I fall over because I want to use my body weight to help lift her and help move her into position. Now, we do this both sides, okay? Now, some people cannot do this, either because it's just too much bend or stretch on the back, just too much. Maybe you can't do it because you can't kneel like this, okay? Or you're too big in the body, don't have enough leg left over for someone to be on, or your client is too wide, that even when they're on top of you, they're on the floor. If for any reason you can't do it, this is the option. sleeping pillows about that size. Pack them up really nice and tight up against the back with your client. Kind of a little bit forward, okay? Nice and tight. Same thing, cup the back of the head. That's to keep the head from flopping back. See, if I'm you and I'm starting to fall backwards, if I don't feel that my head is supported, this is what I do. See if you can see this. As soon as I start to go back, I'll lock up on the front of my neck. Now, what muscles am I locking up? The antagonistic muscles that are the anterior paraspinals and muscles on the front of the body, which are exactly the muscles I actually need to release in order to do a back bend. Okay, and so it's self-defeating to cause that little as someone's going back and you're trying to get them to do a back bend. All right, the way to keep that from happening is to firmly support the neck and act as if you have them in control. They're not going to fall. You've got to communicate that with how you're holding the person. Okay, one more time. Take a nice breath. Exhale and fall back. That's it. I always pause just a little bit before the head goes down. And you can just go here. Okay, just reach across, and there's your rocking. Okay, see how nice that is? It's a really nice, easy bridge. Come up nice and close behind your client. Okay, pull the arms up, take a big breath. Get her nice and straight. See, I'm using my belly to get that bridge, that arch. Exhale and bend forward. Okay, once she's down, stand up. Feet wide, knees together. Take a breath and exhale. Follow down with the breath. One, pushing with the shins. Inhale and exhale. Push your arms out straight. And every time you exhale, collapse a little more. 3 breaths. Inhale. Up. Cup the head as you step to the side and fall all the way back. Clean out of the forward bend, all the way back. The last thing that we do in the session is come to the feet and do what's called a warm-up. This is also the first thing that we do in the session. I'll show you. Palm the feet. See how I'm just rocking from side to side? Just palm pressing the feet like I'm leaning on them. Get the heels. Palm walk up the medial leg, the female side of the leg. Big sloppy circles on the knees. Palm walk up the inside thigh to the wind gates that we worked before. Lean forward and press on, press off, and palm walk back down. Don't hang out long. Big sloppy circles to the feet. I'm not looking at my hands. Okay? Rocking and doing like my Ray Charles thing. Here we go. Rocking, rocking, rocking. Okay? Finish. And I come back. Puja again and finish. If I did my puja right the first time, when I do my puja the second time, I should be able to tell that something is different. Okay? It's also one reason why we do puja beginning and ending is we're establishing a baseline so that we can check the breath, check the heart, check the stomach, feel for tension. Just feel for the whole condition or state of the body and tell what's different. I should know if I was successful or not in giving him what I set out to give him. I should be able to feel the difference.
Sanketana Kubatana Budera Watameva, Sankeva Kubatava, Totana, Toyami Santi, Muni Vachanang, Sada Wome Sunanto, Tamasavana Karwi Batanta, Tamasavana Kalon, Tamasavana Kalanta, Chanda Langsing Chanta Sami, Chanda Langsing Chanta Sami, Chanda Langsing Chanta Sami, Satuno Pante, Arahang Sama, Samputo, Pakawa, Putang, Pakawantang, Apiwa Demi, Sawakato, Pakawata Tamo. Amang namasami supatipanno bhagavato sawaka sangho sangtang namami antamayang puttasa bhagavato akarang karomase muatasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasa นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะจตุโลกามราชายามราชาเมติโยสาวกปุถุชนะกัญญนาจะสันติติรุเดตนาธเมวตนาสังเกตนากุปะตนาบุเดรวะธเมวะสังเกวะกุปะตวะโตตนาโตยวะมิสันติเกญมุนิวัจนังสาดาวเมสุนันตุธรรมสวนาการวิปัฏฐานตาธรรมสวนาการวันตาธรรมสวนาการวันตาจันทลังสิงจันทสามีจันทลังสิงจันทสามีจันทลังสิงจันทสามีสาธุโนปันเตอรหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิ